Great. Awesome day in the annals of history of Ray Consulting and AgChem industry in India. Honored to have Rajubhai Shroff on this awesome panel discussion. When Anit just opened the gates, it was like gushing. At a shot, you can see the number in less than 10 seconds, the number has swelled to so much, and it's going to be much thing. I started getting messages, send us the link, further would like to join. That's going to happen further. So, welcome to this yet another series which Ray Consulting has started called Ray Talks, under which we are having panel discussions and talks with the visionary leaders under AgriVision, hear from the leaders. As we all know, a little while ago, Government of India has issued a draft order, and the draft order has created a lot of, I would say, confusion, a little restlessness, and some people were felt that, what next? So that's how some of my industry colleagues who are all in the panel today, we all came together and we said, why not we talk about it? So just to preempt, on 2nd of June, we have a notification from Fertilizer and Chemical Ministry. So of course, that's again just a letter from them. Today we are going to talk with this illustrious panelists on what next. Each one of you is an expert in your own field. But since we have the best from this part of the world in our panel, I won't say panel, he's a special invitee. And thank you, Raju sir, for joining us just in a few minutes notice. And what could be a better way than to have this panel to set off, to take it forward with your address, with your thoughts, not just on AgChem or not just on draft order. You can, as usual, you can be on your own. How you would like this industry to be guided by you, and how we need to get going forward. All yours. Then post that, I'll come back to the panelists' introduction and our introduction, a little more details on the subject of today. Raju sir, all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice meeting you and talking to you. I would like to tell you that I am very optimistic, and future of agriculture in India is very bright. We have problems, but in spite of that, today, with minimum use of pesticide, India is second largest producer of agriculture in the world. And that credit not only goes to industry, but it more goes to our farmer. People talk about farmers misuse pesticide, indiscriminate use, but those who go to the farm, who meet the farmer, know that our farmer is very intelligent, they learn very fast, and I'm sure if we remove the hurdle, future of agriculture in India is very bright. Government knows today that Indian economy cannot come without help to farmer. One side, Government of India is doing everything possible, giving more and more new schemes, new benefits. And other side, one group which is misguided by perhaps NGOs and environmental activists is making a very big harm to our agriculture production. This is one thing, but I will like to tell you that just before some time, they put pesticide management bill. If you go through the bill, if farmer commits any mistake, the industrialist will go 5 years jail and 50 lakh fine. What absurd criminal law they have made. Luckily, we are meeting ministers, we are meeting a member of parliament, and we hope that they have all understood. But today, let us talk about 26, 27 pesticides which they have banned. They were never thought anything. Some of the pesticides are most popular, very safe, and some of the crops cannot run in India. There is alternative, they talk, there are no alternative available. So this is going to affect everyone. But the most important is, first, it is going to affect our farmers. Industry can suffer or not suffer, or anything can happen, even export may suffer. But the biggest thing I think today is important is our farmer. What will happen if they don't get? What will happen if the crop is destroyed? And so many diseases are there. Without such good fungicide or such good insecticide, farmers will be ruined. Today pesticides are there, but they will double if these pesticides are not available. And I'm sure with panel, with a powerful articles by Dr. Mai and others, things have started moving. People, after my article, I must have got 10 to 15 phone calls. All the people is coming out. And with this panel and with this team, if you go to public, then we will be able to utilize. The biggest problem today we have is our foreign funded NGOs. They have no sense talking about gobar and gomutra, how can survive. They want organic farming. We have found organic farming in India is totally bogus. Hardly any, not a single farm is organic. So this is the situation. But I will not go. I would like to listen to all of you. But I'm sure with this panel and with our approach to government, our approach to politicians, and we have been able to convince some ministers that there is something seriously wrong. And with cooperation of more scientists, we will be successful. Thank you again. Thank you, and looking forward to hear from you. Raju.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Such a short, precise, and you set the agenda for the day. Now let me now honored to introduce each of the panelists. When this thought came just about 4 or 5 days back with a couple of us, and then it's like karma banta gaya, one after the other. And when I spoke to each one of you, none of you had even blinked your eye. Dekhenge, bolenge, karenge. You know, one phone call, all of you said, yes, Raj, let's do it. Thank you, each one. Now, who doesn't know Dr. C.D. Mai Sahab, Doyen? Which is the field, which is the division, which is the department he has not headed or handled? He's, in Sanskrit we say, his word is Vedavakya in agriculture and administration. He's that kind of stature. He enjoys because he stands for right things. He is respected by one and all. Dr. You're welcome to this panel and truly honored to have you. Let me just take you through. I know he doesn't need introduction, but let me finish my formality. Dr. C.D. Mai, as we all know, is a renowned cotton scientist and currently serving and very active, serving as a president of South Asia Biotechnology Center, that is SABC, and chairman of AFC India Limited. Formerly, it was called Agricultural Finance Corporation of India. Dr. Mai has worked in various capacities. I mean, when I was going through the list, I don't find any institute where he was not associated with, but I would like to take you through the list. Central Rice Research Institute, Punjab Agriculture University, Ford Foundation, Maharashtra Agriculture University, Parabani, where he was Vice Chancellor too. The research and teaching and extension experience led him to work as Vice Chancellor everywhere. He was Director of the Institute of Agricultural Commissioner, Government of India. And he was Chairman, Agricultural Scientist Recruitment Board. What we have, IPS, IFS, we have ARS. And he was elected as fellow member of several scientific committees and associations, including Vice President of National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, and also invited as a member of international societies, including ISAAA and ABNE. Dr. Mai has been Alexander Humboldt Fellow of Germany. And Dr. Please pardon me, there were at least 100 awards under your list.
I think you did not mention all of these. Let us, because we can save time on this.
Yes, yes.
No,
What
because majority of them are known to me very well. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for introduction.
What shocked me was, Dr. we also have something called Agribusiness Summit and Awards, where we honor the doyens of Indian agri-industry as Lifetime Achievement Award. You have received at least half a dozen Lifetime Awards. Probably it's so difficult to get one, and you have so many. Honor to you, Dr. Please welcome. And then we have Dr. K.S. Tyagarajan, again, very well-known face, been working multinationals like Ron Polank, Avantis, and BASF. Until recently, he was with BASF, not only as a director, but advisor to the CEO. Now, currently, he's the president of protection. He is very actively involved with the FICCI and Environmental Committee of CIA. Currently, he is heading the post at agro sector. He is heading the position at European Business Group in agro sector. At present, as I mentioned, he is the president of Crystal Crop Day, and he also, I'm sorry, I missed, AgChem Federation of India, AgroChem Federation of India. So welcome, Tyagarajan sir.
Thank you.
Then we have Dr. A.S. Tomar, Vice President, Dhanuka Agritech. Dr. Tomar, he has been working with various industries, companies like Gada Chemicals, Cadila in Agro Division, Godrej Agrovet, and DE Nossel. He has identified developed potential technologies through partnership and building value chains for commercialization of new products for sustainable agriculture. Dr. Tomar Saab, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Ajit Kumar, UPL, and again, illustrious personality. Dr. Kumar carried out extensive research projects for crop protection molecules. He is very well-known authority in the field of product development and regulatory affairs. He is credited with the introduction of many new generation agrochemical molecules in India for the betterment of farming. Dr. Saab, welcome. We have Jitendra Mohan is appearing on my panel discussion for the second time in less than a fortnight. In fact, this idea was conceived by him and then we took it forward. Mohan is Chief Operating Officer of Willowwood and he's got over 21 years of experience in the agrochemical industry. Jitendra, he has joined since the inception of Willowwood India and he brought versatile combination of scientific knowledge and business acumen by joining Willowwood, and in less than 11 years, I think, they are in such a position, they are in the top 20 in the country, and they're the fastest growing company in the country division. Jitendra ji, welcome. Yes. So, with all these illustrious panelists, I am tempted to speak a bit about myself, about Ray Consulting.
Yes.
Ray Consulting, he is conceived about 8 years back. I myself come from AgChem industry. I've been working with Rallis, Cheminova, FMC. I was with PI. My last assignment was marketing in Nagarjuna Group. Now, what made me to come out and start this at a peak of my career was that I found there's a gap in agri inputs consultancy, and then we started this taking a huge risk. But thanks to support from people like you, we got a good base and setup in India and Southeast Asia and Middle East. What we do, we have serving clients in entire agri value chain, facilitating corporate strategy. We are into creating vision and purpose statements for the organizations. We help in business growth through due diligence, facilitating investments, market research. We are into regulatory affairs and product registrations. We help in setting up new plans for the clients, and we also help in getting B2B businesses. Currently, we have working in Malaysia and Myanmar, taking some of the companies and starting businesses there. In individual capacity, I am a strategist and attend on to talks, guest lectures in some of the management institutions. So with this, let's straight go to the questions. Dr. Maisa, I would like to start with you. Can you, yeah.
Thank you.
I think with your kind of background, exposure, you are seeing this industry by sitting in the front row. You are being part of devising the strategies or administration to come out or come in with these rules and regulations for this industry. Let us all know that what made Government of India to think of this kind of order to come out.
First of all, let me thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Very well.
All of us can hear.
Thank you very much. I think first let me thank Raju Bhai, because pesticide industry. In fact, all these people, Tyaga, Ajit Kumar, I learned from them. Actually, being in the government, you learn, but you learn more from the private industry. So I must thank them. They are all here. I am happy. We have Dr. Tomar, Dr. Ajit, Dr. Tyagaraja, then Jitendra, Mohan, and all. So I welcome them and I am happy to see them here. Friends, banning 27 pesticides in bulk in one go is totally a wrong step of the government. Let us be I am very clear that it is a wrong step. If this draft order is to get converted into what we call it as a government resolution. So we have to see that it is stopped because they are given some time. It comes to my mind, whose interest the government is trying to serve by banning 27 pesticides at one go and 2 earlier pesticides in January. That means totally I find is 29 pesticides in this 2020, that COVID year, because everybody is worried about 2020, because we have locust damage in 2020, we have fall armyworm damage in 2020, we have also cyclones in 2020. So, and we are already in pandemic situation where we are in lockdown. I am surprised why this has all of a sudden come. And I find that there's a big range of insecticides, herbicides, and also fungicides, which are is going to be in the ban list of 27. The impact could be very bad. Let me first tell you that it will reduce the choice of the farmers for pest management in the different cropping system, because India is a very complex situation. We have series of different ecological situations and agroclimatic situations where we have different cropping systems where we need these pesticides right throughout the year. And it's a direct loss of revenue also of the government. In fact, I was told that nearly 20,000 crore loss is only of the domestic sale. And there may be a loss of something like 9,600 crores of export. So what is that we are really serving out of all these things, where we find that this order will kill the enthusiasm of those who are all talking about India getting big in all these situations. So this is my first view. Now I come to your question. I don't want actually by this draft order to kill the enthusiasm of our industry people and also our farmers get nervous. Let us not, because I am sure that the government will listen to it, and we have already written so many things about it. Now I come to your answers. The root cause of this draft order probably lies somewhere in what I called as Verma Committee report. I just went through that, and I was surprised that Verma Committee was given 66 chemicals at one go. Never in the history of pesticide research or even CIB-RC, banning of 66 or order to create a review of 66 pesticides was made at one stroke. And actually what has happened is, out of that you will find 12 of these pesticides are already banned out of that 66. And then 6 will also be phased out in 2020. And remaining 27 has come for the critical review. And I think that's why origination of this maybe lies in that particular report, what I feel. And the fate of remaining 21 is also hanging. I don't know what Verma Committee has suggested for them, but maybe slowly that will also come. So the root cause, it appears that it may be in this particular Verma committee report. And there could be several other weapons to really put the ban on these pesticides. Let us look at the question as to what could be the answer. Let me tell you, as you suggested, is a drastic decision. I fully agree that this is not only drastic, but this is also a sudden decision. And that sudden decision, without any proper thinking, is going to definitely harm. Because we already know in science that we have to see all the sides and then only take a decision. Now, the simple answer to this decision could be, the government actually gave as a policy research, which Ranju Bhai has very rightly said, something about organic farming. Is it that to promote organic farming that we want to ban 27 of these pesticides? Is it that Subhash Palekar's zero budget is to be banned in spite of the fact that National Academy of Agriculture Research, all scientific organizations written to government, that this zero budget has no meaning because it will be really, in terms of earning our farmers, will be zero. So, are we at a stroke creating problem for food security, nutritional security for the country? And then now with the changing climate change or with the climate changes and all that which is occurring, how are we going to stop locust out of organic farming? Now you need malathion, you need several other fungicides, you are talking about drones now. So technology is required. Even for the same COVID-19, I don't think we are able to rely only on some of these herbs or some of those homeopaths. But we are all waiting for the vaccine to come. And that too vaccine which will be probably genetically modified vaccine. We don't know. So there are 10 or 9 institutions which are working. So it is only science that will really prevail. And then how are we going to control locust in this country? How are we going to control fall armyworm? How are we going to control the T4 strain of banana, which have all come? A lot of invasive pests are coming in this country with the travel and all those things. So let us look that we are a part of globalization. We can't remain in isolation. And therefore, alone organic farming, or for that matter, anything like zero budget is not going to serve. But this could be one reason, what I feel, behind those who are, some people are working, particularly which I think Ranju Bhai has referred to as environmentalists, they call it, because they want to save the country, they want to save everything, and they feel that we are all destroying the country. This is what is the feeling, and I think this is something wrong. The second reason what I feel is that the governments want actually the industry and farmers to pin you, to get reactions. All of a sudden, they are just probing you, and they are trying to understand what is your reaction to these 27%. Otherwise, why should they bring all of a sudden in a bulk 27 of these chemicals? Because I feel that this is only pinning them so that you all run around, and that is the government strategy. I always feel when I was Commissioner Agriculture, it is a duty. Government always, you see, create situation in such a way that they want private people to run to them and respect them. They are all sitting in chambers and they don't want to do it. So that's why when I used to have, I said that whenever these Ranju Bhais and all these were coming to me when I was an agriculture commissioner, I never put a red light on my door. I said, no, they are my customers and I must serve them. If at all I am an agriculture commissioner, it is for them. And government's decision, I must communicate to them so that they know it properly. That's why even sometimes in Krishi Bhavan, I used to call that wherever there are red lights, this is a red light area. But my door used to be always open and I never kept it. So there is a tendency in government ask you to run. Maybe are they pinning industry people to run like that? This may be another reason. And the third reason what I find is that normally the innovators of most of these are data generation for their molecules are actually their old chemistries and old generic compounds. Now, for example, if you take carbendazim, which I worked very extensively, and I was surprised my name has come in that bill, that draft bill. I don't know. I, as a committee member, at least I definitely, because now almost 15 years I am retired. And I definitely know that I have never recommended banning of carbendazim. But still, I think somebody has put my name there, my committee. I don't know how. But because I have extensively worked on carbendazim, I think if you see all my research papers, I am so confident about the product that this has given a lot of boost to plant pathology in the country. So how can I suggest to ban that? But this is what BASF probably is not interested. Why they are not interested? It's a normal tendency of any of these NMCs. When they bring new product, they themselves voluntarily try to withdraw that. I think that could be a good decision. But then Indian situation is totally different. And probably because the data which the government probably are asking, or maybe Verma committee might have asked, which I am not sure, that we have not replied on their endocrine disruptions, then there are some other B issues and so many other issues. Whether we have replied them properly or not, we don't know. And sometimes what happens, because the producer or the data generator original is not interested. So that has happened in some of the committees which I know. But then somebody can take that responsibility in the industry as a group, and then they can submit. And I think that could be one of the reasons what I feel that it is there. Now, there is another reason which I find, that it is because some of the banned, some of those insecticide, fungicide, herbicides are banned outside country. I think if you see the list, they have put a lot of things into these things, that it is banned here, it is banned there, it is banned there, some countries' name are given. Let me ask them. They have said that Thiram and Mancozeb are banned in Saudi Arabia. Can you compare agriculture of Saudi Arabia with that of India? Can you compare the agriculture of UK, where they spend more money on maintaining lawns than agriculture? In Germany, they are spending more money on gardens than agriculture. So we cannot compare where we have. So all those, I have seen carbendazim is banned in Mozambique. Dinocap is in UK. Zynab is also in some countries. Xyram. Sulfosulfuron in Norway. Where is agriculture of Norway? So I think to give those reasons is laughing stock, let me tell you, in the government's order. Somebody uses say in Benin it is banned. I said, have you anybody seen Benin? And find out what is Benin there, what is the agriculture there. And can you compare? 25% of the world's farmers are in India. 25%. And 52% people are dependent on agriculture. Tomorrow, let me tell you, this pandemic has created another huge problem of migration, reverse migration from cities to villages. And these villages, they have to look into what we call it as agriculture as the basis, because that is a guaranteed employer then of the country. So naturally, what I feel is that there may be likewise what the reasons the government is putting, they could be of laughing stock, let me tell you. But we cannot see, because government says that it is banned somewhere. But I think we'll have to counter these things. We'll have to find out how is our agriculture is comparable to what they have. And finally, I would like to say that there are some financial pressures probably on the government. And there may be some lobbies who are working for it. I think for whom? Because if I say that organic farming lobbies is working, I don't agree at all that they also know it, that the Indian agriculture totally cannot be dependent on zero budget. It cannot be dependent on organic totally. But there may be some other people who are interested that India is a growing economy. Our Honorable Prime Minister has already given a call, what we call it as Atmanirbharta. We are talking about Make in India. Now this order is exactly reverse. When our own industry is earning a lot of money out of export, Make in India, all those generation products are now produced in India. We are a leading nation now in the entire business of exports. So why do we should, is somebody interested to kill us in that particular stage? I am afraid that some lobbies, or maybe our growth projections which are now happening, and some people outside, it may not be NGOs, they may be even international NGOs who could be behind all these things. But I think we'll have to fight it out and certainly see that this will not happen. And government should think many times that why do we have our own stone putting on our own foot? Because this is something which is unimaginable. So let us look into 27 more critically. I would suggest even one of the articles which I have written and given it to Rajju Bhai, he appreciated that article because we clearly said that let this Verma committee's report be reviewed once again and find out what are the clauses which basically have been mistaken for this thing. I think this is the brief answer, which I think I have taken a little more time for you. But maybe there are some questions, Dr. Rajkumar ji. I will be able to be there with you. And I am keen to listen to Ajit Kumar, Tomar, then hamare friend Tyagi, and all other these people. Thank you very much. I think briefly, I hope I have given you a satisfactory answer to your question. Thank you very much.
Very good. Excellent.
Doctor, you have set the stage on fire. Now, see, I was fortunate to be with Dr. Norman Borlaug for a few minutes. He had come to Hyderabad when I was a student, and I was fortunate to see him, meet him, shake hands with him, and then have his autograph. I remember in that gathering he has mentioned, someone has put a question about pesticides, agrochemicals to be used in crop. Not only that, he has mentioned it several times. He said, look, agrochemicals, pesticides are not a bad word at all. They are not a bad word at all. They need to be used judiciously. That time, there was hardly any population. Now, today, if I look at it, there's 7.8 billion populations across the globe, and out of that 1.3, 1/6 of the world lives in India. And to save and to feed the billions of hungry stomachs, and that too in current trend, nutritious food, I think, as of now, at least, there's no substitute to AgChem, but yes, we can look into organic, we can look into various other subjects, but they are not absolute substitutes. Thank you, Dr. Mai. I think very, very illustrious way you put it. Now, from government's perspective, we heard Dr. Mai giving it. I come to Dr. Ajit. Please, from corporates or commercial point of view, what is your view on this? When I say commercial point of view, from technical point of view, regulatory point of view.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon. I just thought to give you little historical background of this review of 27 pesticides and what is the likely impact on our agriculture or country as a whole. You see, in the year 2008, there was a minister. His name was Mr. B.K. Handik. He was Minister for State for Chemicals and Fertilizers. And he made a statement in the Rajya Sabha and said that there are 66 pesticides which are used in the world, but they are banned in one or more countries. Now, what happened to this statement was that there was some selective publicity and the statement was rephrased that there are 66 pesticides which are banned in one or more countries, but they are still used in India. Now, this changed the entire connotation. And therefore, when I was hearing Dr. Mai, he mentioned the countries like Saudi Arabia, some product is banned, or Mozambique, some product is banned. So I find that it finds a sentiment in the present draft order that Mancozeb, for example, is quoted to be banned in Saudi Arabia. And that's one of the reasons that it should be banned in India. So this sentiment went very strong that if a product is banned in one country or more country, that cannot be used in India. Now, it is worthwhile to note that there is a FAO guideline that says that if any country has banned a product, you're not obliged to ban it. I mean, you have to take the decision based on your socio-economic condition. But somehow this principle has been thrown out, and the present situation is something that everybody is aware of. Now I come to the review, real review. Why I quoted this, that it has got some connection with the Verma Committee. So in 2013, this Verma Committee was constituted to review these 66 pesticides, which was mentioned by the minister, the then minister, Mr. B.K. Handik. And this committee was supposed to submit the report within 6 months. It could not complete the report. It had several extensions. And ultimately, this report was submitted after 1.5 years in December 2015. And in the same month and year, registration committee accepted this recommendation of Dr. Verma Committee. Not only it accepted as such, but it also laid out several conditions, several studies it proposed without even consulting the industry as to what is the rationale of suggesting these studies. And it came out with the recommendation to ban 18 pesticides. The second recommendation it came out with was that there are some 27 pesticides which can continue, but they are subject to certain studies. Rest of the products it cleared. However, some of the products were considered to be banned further. Now, it is very interesting to note that this decision of registration committee or recommendation of registration committee was forwarded to Government of India, and simultaneously it was also posted on the website of CIB&RC, and industry read it. There was an utter confusion that there's a recommendation for the Ministry of Agriculture, Government of India, why it has been made public. And it is now when this draft order has come in public, we find a mention that there is an order dated 14 October 2016 to say that government has accepted the recommendation of registration committee. Now the question arises, when the registration committee has recommended that certain studies on these 27 pesticides have to be completed by December 2017, and the order is coming on 14 October 2016, how can you complete these 2 years data in 14 months? So nobody bothered to see all these things. Anyway, now when you go into details of this data which was supposed to be generated, there is something mentioned that whatever data you generate, for example, I can give you a live example. In case of a product called Acifade, it's an insecticide. It said that you have to generate the data on the resurgence of the pest and submit the same by December 2017. On the protocol, study protocol approved by registration committee. And when does registration committee approves it? Registration committee approves it in November 2017. And in December 2017, you are supposed to submit the data whose study itself is for 2 years. Now, nobody has really seen and gone in detail as to what has been the conduct of the policymakers, the regulators, to be helping industry in completing this data. Nobody has really bothered, and they have rushed to ban these products. What happened then when industry made a lot of hue and cry about this injustice? So registration committee heard, and they said, all right, we are extending this timeline to December 2019. There is a record, they are on record to say that. And then 4 months after, they say, sorry, that recommendation that we gave to extend the deadline is withdrawn because this does not lie in our power. It lies in the power with the Ministry of Agriculture, Department of Agriculture and Cooperation, DAC. Now, such has been the gap, and there is a constant debate going on between industry and the government at several forums, several times. I have been privy to the company of Raju Bhai Shroff to be going to several meetings, and at no meeting it was asked that, look, you have lapsed this deadline of December 2017. And there was absolutely no discussion at all about it. Then suddenly, registration committee constitutes a subcommittee under Dr. Khurana of the same department. And Dr. Khurana reviews, industry presents the case and claims that 80% data has been completed and submitted. Now, what is remaining is some data because you are doing work with something which relates to agriculture, the crop, the pest. Crop may fail, pests may not appear. Universities who conduct all these experiments, they are not free to take your work, etc., etc. And therefore, this committee and RC registration committee agreed that one more opportunity should be given to the industry. Now, what is this one more opportunity? It was not very clear, but it looks that one more opportunity should be given for development of data. I think registration committee took always a very, very pragmatic view, and industry was very satisfied that, all right, dialogue is going on. We have got some time. We are all busy developing all this data, to find suddenly that there is this draft notification to inform us that all these 27 products are banned. And the reasons cited are bizarre. Reasons cited are something which has not been covered even by Anupam Verma committee or registration committee. What it says is that no data has been submitted as recommended by Anupam Verma committee, or incomplete data has been submitted. It says no, from the PAN, Pesticide Action Network, the NGOs who maintain the database, as per PAN, we find so-and-so product is banned in so-and-so country. I gave example of Mancozeb. It says that Mancozeb is banned in Saudi Arabia. Even if you have to give this information, I'll appreciate if you say Mancozeb is approved in USA, in Canada, in Brazil, in Argentina, in Japan, in Australia, New Zealand, all these countries. However, it is banned in Saudi Arabia. Perhaps I'll accept it. But the negative mindset to say it is banned in Saudi Arabia, what comparison we have with Saudi Arabia agriculture and Indian agriculture? And you ban Mancozeb? And with that, you ban 18 pesticides? There are 18 pesticides registered which are based on Mancozeb. You cannot make those products unless you have got Mancozeb. We are talking these 27 pesticides. As a matter of fact, along with the 27 pesticides, what we are banning 130 pesticides used by the farmers. Such is the magnitude. Just imagine, out of total 450 formulation roughly, which is being used actively by the farmers, 130 formulations are banned in one go by banning 27 active molecules. Then it says that alternatives are available. That's why it is being banned. Now, in agriculture parlance, in pesticide parlance, alternative will be those products which has got the same label claim, which has got the ability to control same pests, which are being used on the same dose, which are offering similar economics, etc., etc. So what is the understanding of alternatives are available, therefore these products are being banned, is something I cannot understand. It says that products are toxic to bees. Look at this. Now, pesticides are toxic by nature. If they are not toxic, they are not pesticides. It's a fact. Now, if you apply any of these pesticides on bees directly, bees will die. For sure, they will die. But then if you apply them in the field, the way they are recommended to be applied, it has no impact. Our farmers are so trained. I'll show you a simple example. Let's take, for example, honey production. If bees are dying, then how come honey production has gone up from 5,17,000 metric ton some 20 years ago to present time 6,56,000 metric ton? How the honey production has gone up if the bees are dying? It is said that it is toxic to fishes. Certainly, pesticides are toxic to fishes. If you put on the fishes, they will die. But then the way you are supposed to use, if you use, there is no impact on these fishes. We have got the data. Same, last 20 years, 2.85 million tons was the production 20 years ago. Today's production is 9.70 million tons. And these inland fishing that I am talking about, this is the data for inland fishing. They are mostly located in Andhra Pradesh and Punjab. And they are the states which consume most pesticides. So the point which is that not enough thought has really gone into it. When you say the reason that no data or no complete data has been submitted, you have got in your record 80% of the data already submitted. By now, some more are ready. What is the hurry? Can't you give us another 2-3 months, 6 months? Can you talk to us? Why didn't you talk? Why the Verma committee report has not been made public? As on today, we don't know. We are supposed to reply this draft order within 45 days. And we have no information. What is the source of this information with the government that we are supposed to give reply? So we have filed an RTI, we have given letter, we are requesting them, please give us your source information so that we can reply. So I hope we'll get the reply. Long and short of this is, it's a big issue for the industry, for the farmers, for the country. And we were so alarmed that Raju Bhai organized a meeting with the Agriculture Minister, Honorable Shri Narendra Singh Tomarji, only some last week. And we presented our case, all put together. We said, sir, what are you doing? What you have done? And then he said, well, the file was brought to us, brought to me. I was told that since 5 years, industry is not giving data. So therefore, these products are banned. We had no alternative. But he also added, he said that he has no bad intention towards anybody. He has no bad intention towards industry. And the time has been given. We are supposed to submit the reply. And then I think something will emerge out of it. What we are looking is a total transparency from the government. Give us the Anupam Verma committee report. What happened? Make it public. Why is it a secret? And give us the information on the basis of the fact that these products are banned. If you're saying Acifate is being banned because it's an OP compound, so show me your document, your law, which says that if it is an OP compound, it will be banned. So it has been really very, very thoughtless of the government to have banned these products. We are very hopeful from the statement of the minister. And I hope that we will get all this information available and we'll submit the reply, and then something positive can move out. That's what we are hoping for the best. And then when it happens, then Prime Minister's call, vocal for local under Make in India policy will perhaps be a reality. With these words, I stop. Thank you so much.
Great, Dr. Ajit. I think with a huge illustration of historical background and the current trends, I mean, especially you gave a thing in terms of environment or the bees harmful and the fish harm, but seeing in the numbers and the production going up in fish, production going up in honey, makes a case by itself. And you at the end, I mean, thanks Rajubhai sir, you know, the meeting was already has already initiated and happened with the Honorable Agriculture Minister, and you have at the end given like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully we will all together work on that. Now we heard from government's point of view. When I say government's point of view, is what we to Dr. Mai and then Dr. Ajit. Now Jitendra, you are a very unique combination of scientific, technical, and then commercial. So in terms of revenues, I'm not telling that this will happen. It's just I repeatedly use draft order and I always use in italics. Why? I mean, like we all spoke. Dr. Mai said, 20,000 crores, 9,500 crores, so much. Are we in a position to take that hit? A, B, and it came out very clearly. Two factors. One is ROI. The generics of this 27 odd related products, what we are having, they are a very cheap substitute, and India can afford only this kind of molecules. And number two, even if there is a substitute which is at a higher cost, I don't think farmer is in a position to afford those expenses. I mean, they are always welcome. New chemistry is always welcome. But I think both of them should go hand in hand. But what is your view, in terms of revenues or in terms of commercials?
Yes.
Both exports and domestic.
Yes, Raji. I think some of the point already discussed with Dr. Mai already given some of the points, and I think Dr. Ajit also. So from my end, and as per you can see the impact overall of this decision. If the banning of 27 molecules is implemented by Government of India, then it will have a disastrous impact on Indian crop chemical protection industry because of various reasons. I would like to share some important reasons to understand the overall impact of this decision. I think there are more than 130 formulations, both solo and combination, which will get banned due to the banning of these 27 molecules. The alternate products to these 130 formulations are not identified by DAC till now. It is not known that these alternate products have some same approved level claims of the product they are going to replace. The cost impact analysis and availability of alternate products has not been carried out by DAC till now. High input cost of the farmers will have direct bearing on output cost, and ultimately food inflation. The non-availability of alternate products will be disastrous for our agriculture and food security of our country. We foresee that revenues of the Indian manufacturing companies will shrink by 35 to 40%, 35 to 40% due to banning of B27 products. India, we all know, India is the major exporter of products like mancozeb, chlorpyrifos, deltamethrin, cypermethrin, and we are known for globally for CS2-based chemistry, pyrethroids, and organophosphate chemistry. And our Indian companies are catering to almost 100% global requirement for some of these products. And the annual export of these 27 molecules between around 30,000 crore. And the domestic market of these 27 products is around 6,000 to 8,000 crore. So overall revenue, if you can see, loss is around 26,000 to 28,000 crore for the industry, out of which you can say approximately 18 to 20,000 crore will be forex loss. So, and these products, especially what we have discussed for the CS2-based chemistry or organophosphate chemistry or pyrethroid-based chemistry, the requirement of these chemistry and these products, mainly in North America, Central America, Latin America, and other developed countries are fulfilled for export for India. Therefore, there is a strong possibility that banning of those products will lead to their shortage in those countries also. The most glaring part, I think Dr. Mai already discussed some of the point and Dr. Ajit already discussed some point, but again, I'm just saying and will update you all. The most glaring part is that the banning has been proposed on unfounded and highly non-scientific grounds. The draft notification is full of absurd reasons, like they rely on only public domain data with respect to safety issues, toxicity data, groundwater contamination, and leaching potential. No efforts have been made to address the safety concern under Indian agroclimatic conditions. Proposal is based on hazard assessment done in European Union, which itself is wrong as we follow the system of risk assessment in India. Non-submission of residue data, persistent pest resistance or resurgence data by India, which itself is full of false. Why I'm saying this? Because we as a company, many of the companies from Indian companies, they are protecting many molecules. And we have submitted the data what Dr. Khurana has required. And we have already submitted more than 80-90% of data. Some of the data they require that we have already taken the time that we can provide us at least for 1 or 2 month time so that we can fulfill your data. Then again, they have referred banning in few countries. I will share you one example of oxyfluorophene. They have referred one country, Mozambique, whereas the same product widely used in North America, Central America, Latin America, and all developed countries. So in my view, I think more technical aspect we'll discuss further with our other panelists, Dr. Tyaga and Dr. Tomar. Thank you very much from my side. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good.
Yeah, good, Chaitanya. I think you brought in the combination of both. I mean, in case it happens, not only for the industry, how the farmers would get affected in terms of thing. Now with this, Tyaga sir, now, I mean, I would say, you know, you've been like BSF, carbendazim, is a synonym. Synonym. Now, when it comes to you, I mean, I don't know. I felt when I was talking to a lot of industry colleagues, I still am part and parcel of the industry. Most of them perceive this draft order as a faulty kind of a thing. And of course, it has come out that, you know, you call it as a haste, you call it as in a hurry, or you call it, you know, ad hoc. But somewhere, some faulty nature they are trying to tag it to. So, in your view, as a senior technical and regulatory professional, what's your take on this?
Thank you, Raji, and a very good afternoon.
Very good.
To all the panelists and all the people on the program. As all the eminent speakers have eloquently put it, this is a shocker to the industry, and in the present circumstances, a major setback. It clearly shows it's a work in haste. If you see the notification, it has got a common flow of entries, in many places vague or contradictory. Contradictory because Ajit was mentioning about SF8. Let's take it. They say no data submission has been done on resurgence in cotton and rice. The very next point in the notification is there are no reports of resurgence traced in public domain. So on one side, you want the data and you're asking for the data. On the other side, you're putting in the notification, there are no reports of resurgence in public domain. Then what is the need of this data? So it is a bit very contradictory. The biggest casualty of this notification is science. Scientific assessment has been virtually bypassed and thrown to the dumps. And the second biggest casualty is the truth, the reality. Both the actual facts are missing. There has been an extreme reliance on public domain sources of questionable integrity or standing, be it in their own country or globally or in India. There has been extensive amount of cherry picking. What they like, they have put in. What they don't like, they have discarded, and the realities have never been presented in the notification. The entire notification seems to lean on PAN, with the result it is EU-centric, European Union-centric, where the climatic conditions, the cropping patterns, as rightly said, the system of assessment is hazard-based versus risk-based assessments in India, Australia, Brazil, USA, Canada, wherein the products are recognized for the risk assessment and risk mitigation measures are brought in. Nothing of it has been taken into consideration. Rightly, it should have been an apple-to-apple comparison, but this notification has done is an apple-to-orange comparison in the usage patterns. So I fully agree with the panelists that the small marginal farmers who constitute 85-90% of the can afford these products, which have been there for, will be the most impacted. The government on one side speaks about a 90,000 crore loss or even more in the field. And with these generics moving out of the market, it should bound to go, which will have an impact on the food security, availability of the food, and above all, the flagship program of doubling the farmers' income. On the contrary, increasing the income, it is going to dip the income. Now, let me make a little bit of deep dive, a little dive into some of the points which have been already touched upon by my colleagues on the standard phrases that they've used. On ban, as many said, Dr. Mai, Ajit and others said, most of the countries, especially in European Union, when they find that the cost of maintaining a registration, new data generations, that there are new molecules coming in and many other issues, they voluntarily withdraw the product on commercial grounds because of the cost factor. And we should keep in mind here the EU registration system, where the technical gets registered in one member state, is supported by the rapporteur states. And once the technical is out, the other countries where our formulations are registered also do not generally stand by. They also support this sort of withdrawal. So it is sort of a herd mentality which sees that when one country says I'm withdrawing, they mention the same reasons and they sort of withdraw all these products. And this is seen in Europe and in few of the African countries. The second is there may be inherent characteristics of the product, which probably after defending and generating data, but then that doesn't mean the product is bad. The product can still be sort of addressed and its continued use can be done. As Rajubhai rightly said, the NGO pressures. We have the Greenpeace, the Pesticide Action Network, and all bodies which day and night, their one simple logic and one simple aim is to see how to derail any development or any such products which could facilitate a growing economy. The PAN, Pesticide Action Network, I would like to make it a little bit depth. If you go into its own document of 2009, it says, and it quotes in its first page, PAN promotes healthy food, sustainable agriculture and safe environment without using hazardous pesticides. So you have a body which is already biased and they don't want to promote pesticides, and then you go and lean on them extensively. The government is dependent on quoting them time and again. And this is a body which is UK based, which has no local standard, which is a notorious body right from its inception, been against pesticides, and it has no scientific background to date also. Conveniently, the government of India or the ministry has forgotten that there are international bodies like the United Nations list of 9, which is products which can be banned, restricted or used, which gives you the reason They have not even made any reference to that sort of product list. And here, as many others said, that the positive side of these product registrations, let me take carbon design. When we say, because Dr. Mahitu referred, 29 countries, out of these 28 are European. And Germany withdraws it as a parent company. Other companies will definitely be also, the other countries also forced to take it up. And Mozambique, a country where it is heavily dependent upon the French influence, and so France has done it. So Mozambique, in most of the cases, would have withdrawn these products. So here you have listed the countries like US, Canada, Japan, Australia, Brazil, Southeast countries, South Asian countries, many more, which are still continuing to wisely use this product, and they have the same sort of climatic conditions, the farming pattern, and it's been a big win-win story too. So in case of ban, I would say we are what compulsion we are really, God only knows. But why are we following this international bodies like PAN blindly? We need to see it from the Indian point of view, the Indian farmers' point of view. And let's move to bioefficacy. As Ajit rightly summed up, and over the period of time when the entire industry met, Dr. Khurana subcommittee presented data status, completed, partially submitted, and all that. It was accepted, but it is absolutely not seen in the Gazette notification. The factual information has not been reflected. Where it says data, no data, they use the word fresh data, which is very much there. They also are saying inadequate data, which indirectly implies that there has been some data that has been generated and submitted. You are not even acknowledging that there has been some data that has been given. You continue to say that there has been no data submitted. In reality, what happened? There were many studies that had to be done on fishes, aquatic organisms, on bee toxicities, and so many other issues. But when the industry was asked to define and give a protocol, it took them some time because they were not dependent upon certain private CROs, but they had to go down to the CSR institutes and the national institutes where, based on their priority and workload, they developed the protocols, and the industry very responsibly gave these protocols to the CIVRC, which took its own time to also later get them approved. And these studies take time. In spite of all that, the industry has addressed these requirements. On an issue of baseline toxicity, till date, in spite of many associations writing to them seeking clarification, what does baseline toxicity mean? There was no concrete answer as to what it denotes or what it means. So they left it to the interpretation of the industry itself. They said that these products are deemed to be registered. They said you could also supplement your fresh data with publications which have been done with the ICR institutes, with the pesticide monitoring residual bodies, which are all reputed scientists, reputed bodies, and in India with very good infrastructure. But nothing of it has been considered in terms of things. They depend heavily on the public domain data of international notorious bodies, but here we have very scientific bodies which have given some data which has not been relied upon. So here again, I find the reality is not portrayed. It is incorrect and misleading. I now move to the endocrine disrupting potential. Way back in 1990s, USA and Europe all worked together to find out what is this endocrine disruption. They addressed these topics. Many of them did a lot of in vitro, in vivo, the lab, inside the labs and outside of the lab, studies on rice, mice, rodents, and different animal models. And what they came across was at high doses, at specific doses, these pesticides were shown as endocrine disruptors, and they suggested certain criteria for classification. Both US and EPA stopped there. They could not develop study protocols further to prove the extrapolation of this endocrine disruption that happens at very minuscule levels at these high doses inside the rats and mice, and linked it to the human system, because the human is already exposed to plastics, Teflon coating vessels, cosmetics, and many others, which also trigger off certain mechanisms. So you cannot pinpoint a pesticide in a minuscule quantity addressing as endocrine disruption, but it is like a very favorite terminology when you call it as ED potential. Just list it in the notification as it has ED potential. Till date, there is no such protocols, which were the study protocols, which can define and link it or pinpoint it. Now I'm coming to PAN. In the same endocrine disruption, in the same document of 2009, it mentions, and I quote, "As yet, there are many aspects of these substances that we do not understand. Regulators cannot even agree across the world what is and what is not an endocrine disrupting chemical." And thereafter, below, they have listed a huge amount of pesticides showing as EDC. So the situation here is that an ED potential means nothing unless you have a scientific evidence to back it up, prove it, a study protocols to prove it. On a simple analogy basis, I could easily say that salt triggers off a BP increase, high BP, but that doesn't mean that salt is to be banned. We also realize that it is more out of food habits, reducing the salt intake. You can manage all that because high BP is also due to stress factor. In a very simple, different analogy, so you just cannot pinpoint that pesticides cause ED potential, and in minuscule quantities, there could be many other reasons in the environment that could amount to such activities. On alternate products available, my colleagues have touched, but the sad part of it is, if there are these available, why were they not named in the Gazette notification? Why was this work not done earlier, and then why did they not put it there? And whether these alternatives which they have in mind, do they have the label approvals? And do they fit into the affordable economical cost paid to the farmer? Majority of this will be nearly 2 to 3 times costlier to the existing generic products. In the other issue on human carcinogen, luckily here at least there is the OECD protocols, study protocol that exist on carcinogenicity. A dose range finding studies are done from minimum to a very high dose, and it is expected high dose in the animal models that you take in mice. The symptoms of tumor, etc., should be seen. But then scientifically, you also arrive based on the studies which are there on the various doses that are safe, and you arrive at the no effect level. And once you arrive at the no effect level, scientifically it has been proved with the safety factor of 100, you have come down to the acceptable daily intakes. And these are the standard procedures for all the chemicals, and especially for these 27 pesticides. There are tons and tons of data which clearly poses that at this acceptable daily intake, it does not pose a risk to the human beings. What is again a very sad situation is the government of India or the ministry did not depend upon any GMP or tox reviews which have been done over a period of time jointly on toxicological issues or on the joint FAO-WHO studies on food residues, but they have depended heavily to just cite it as a possible human carcinogen or probably from the PAN documentation. So in all, there are many such lacunas that you see in the notification which are not science-based, which have just been incorporated. It looks to be a work in haste, more to meet certain deadlines, and absolutely no thought process has been given, because there are these products which are either good for a certain range of pest, which right now we may have, we may not have. Today, as we said, Dr. Mai mentioned for locust, it is the very same compounds you are dependent on. And so I would like to only sum up and conclude that the notification is very misleading, not scientific based, and extensive industry has taken it up. Government should give an opportunity to hear and decide only on purely scientific, rational basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyaga sir. I think when we are all speaking in unison, I'm sure the ministry and the concerned authorities will surely have a patient hearing for what we are talking. And before I move to Dr. A.S. Tomar, I want to share that, today's registrations are from over 20 countries, and whopping almost 900 plus registrations will come in. And we would be loading this recording in our YouTube channel for the benefit of audience. You can visit for all our recordings and on not only Ray Talk series, on our Ray Consulting's other activities, youtube.com/Ray Consulting. So, Dr. Tomar.
Yes. Good afternoon to everyone.
Yeah.
I'm audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Actually, most of the panelists they have already covered. but
Yes.
I would like to emphasize 3 to 4 points.
Yes.
Like if you look at the Special Registration Committee 361, which is held on 22nd December 2015, they have given the recommendation that all deemed to be registered pesticide need to be re-evaluated for their bioefficacy and residue data as against major target pests as approved label for baseline toxin. What was the basic objective behind that? Because these pesticides, which is registered already, they do not have the waiting period. That's why they suggested you guys should generate some data on the residue and persistence and come back. And based on that, we will develop the waiting period. So that was the only major issue. And when I attended many meetings with the expert committee, which is chaired by Dr. Khurana, they said most of the industries, they have already submitted 80 to 90% data. And most of the product will continue. But when I saw this gazette notification, it was a surprise for us. They have assured us that most of the data they have generated, if any crop is lacking, where industries they have not generated residue and persistence data, we will delete that crop from the label claim. We were agreed. And we said, okay, let them, you give us time, we will again generate the data. And which I personally feel that there's some pressure from NGO, from the other multinational group, because they want to ban these generic molecules and they want to have some space into the market. So that is the main other relevant question, which I have seen, the baseline toxicity. So we discussed with Dr. Khurana and other parties, the baseline toxicity, basically data we have to generate against the label claim pest to check either the pest has developed the resistance or not. For example, if my recommended dose is 500 gram per hectare, either today, after 20 years, this 500 gram is still effective, or we have to increase the dose, right? There's a two method. One is the laboratory, by where we have to generate the baseline toxicity, and another is through the field evaluation. So most of the companies, they have evaluated their product in the field, and they have submitted all the required data, which is requested by the CIBRC. The second thing which I would like to share, that I did some analysis also. They have written the alternatives are available. No alternatives till today is available. For example, if you see the carbendazim mancozeb and their combination, it is almost recommended more than 15 crops. There is no single alternative product in India is available who is recommended on 15, 16 crop and who can control the broad spectrum insect pest or diseases. So this is totally, they have misunderstood and they have projected the wrong information. There is no scientific reason behind that. And when we did the economics, as Dr. Ajit Kumar told, that we have to keep in our mind the economic. So if you are applying your alternative product against only 2 diseases, so the cost is 3 to 4 times higher as compared to these generic molecules. So only here, if you will see how it will have the impact to the industries, the government has given the vision, like the doubling income to the farmer. How it is possible? If our cost of production will increase, how we can say the farmer will get the double income? Second point, it will also hit the Make in India vision. And third, the government said Atmanirbhar. It will also have the negative impact on that. And fourth, naturally, the food security. So another scientific data, they rely on pen data. They have mentioned they should develop some protocol, ask group industries to generate the data and let them have together meeting, because all group industries, they have the experts. And the CIBRC, they have the experts. Let them sit together and debate what is right, what is wrong based on the scientific data. Then they can decide. So whatever they have decided, I feel, as Dr. Mahi also suggested, is totally unethical, unscientific way. So we have to, all industries, we have to fight and we have to convince to the government this, they have to withdraw this budget notification. That is from my side. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. See.
Thank you, Raju. One point which I think we have missed is about the seed industry has already written a letter, and it's a very big problem because now a large amount of seed is being treated where we are using Thiram, we are using some of those products like Bavistine, Carbendazim. So I think this point is for them. They also are now in a dilemma because we have a huge problem of pre and post-emergence mortality that is not covered. So I think this is very important, which we have to again project. Somebody has to project this also point. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mai, I think when we saw the registrations, we were quite surprised that besides the AgChem and a lot of other sectors, from research to students to management, there's a huge representation from the seed industry. The top CEOs of the seed industry are part of this webinar today. I mean, good you raise this point. They are concerned about this thing. I mean, what are the alternatives available? Thank you, Dr. Mai. Dr. Tomar, I think you brought in very well about alternatives, and especially doubling a farmer's income. It will take a backseat if we are looking for alternate chemicals. And if you ask for alternate chemicals or alternatives per se, again, they are chemicals. So at what cost? So that's something we would be looking at. So I have a feeling like, if you take, for example, automobile industry in India, it has got a very strong representation. So similarly, AgChem industry probably look into under Raju Bhai's guidance and leadership, and a lot of other stalwarts from Indian community, whether it's Crystal, Dhanuka, PI, name it, rallies. I think we can look into something to be together and then see if required. Consulting will try to coordinate with all the entities. So I think we have heard from all the panelists here. If I may take 1 minute or 2 minutes from each one of you, you feel that something has to come a little more from you, probably, where you felt that after hearing all the panelists, probably little more should be added. Feel free to begin with. Probably we'll take Dr. Ajit Kumar. Dr. Ajit, you'd like to add a few more things?
Well, I think most of it I already have said, and the subject is really very complex.
Yes.
I think we have got some question. I can dwell more, and it will be more meaningful.
Yeah, there are some hands going up. If any attendees would like to put some questions, we request you to please raise your hands through your participants forum, so that we'll try and take you on the call. Then Thomas, of course, you brief. Jitendra, would you like to kind of, before we take questions, is there a way where you feel that commercially you would like to give your endpoints?
Yeah, Dr. Raz. Just as an industry, I tell you, means we have decided certain steps. I think that we should update to all the panels, and I think industries people already knows about it. So we have already taken many steps to nullify the decision of DAC, and I would like to share some important steps which we had already taken. This is the first time that all the major national associations like CCFI, ACFI, CLI, and PFI, and a state level association have come together and are speaking in one voice to get this notification withdrawn by DAC. All the associations have already sent representation to PMO and various concerned central ministries. Representation have been already sent to all state governments. Various farmer associations, first time, various farmer associations also sent representation to central government with request to get it withdrawn. And I think the submission of the stakeholder comments within the prescribed time of period of 45 days, which will be July 2, 2020. And we heard about today that maybe they will increase up to 90 days. And all the associations and various task force are already working on it. So if it is, suppose if it is not, no one can heard our request and all. So I think we should also see for the legal remedy in case our representations and comments are not considered by the government to junk this notification. So we are hopeful, finally we are hopeful with the help of all coordinated efforts of all the stakeholders and support from the various government organizations, this draft Gazette notification will be withdrawn by DAC based on our merits. This is from my side.
What I feel is, Raju bhai, are you able to hear me?
Very well, very
well.
well.
Raju bhai, this is a very important topic because I find that the information which industry has is really heavy material good. They have generated. So I also wrote you a letter very recently that we are upgraded our article and we have given some thought. So why not CCFI or CLI or other people come together and why not we publish a bulletin so that a big issue will come. Say Ajit Kumar's point of view, Tyaga's point of view. Somebody can write on toxicity. Somebody can write about what is happening in other countries. We should somebody talk about alternatives. And this compilation information in a colored format, we should submit to all MPs.
Very good.
I think that would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea.
Very good idea.
Great.
I think one subject, of course, some people mentioned the root cause of this is green peas and Kavita Kurungati and pan and other. And I think other than me, I don't want to boast. Nobody bothers. I have taken green peas and taken them to court and they paid a fine. And now I have a little internal note. Keep away from crop of United Phosphorus. I have got Menka Gandhi's apology. I got Times of India to apologize. I got non-bailable warrant against Sunita Narayan. 100 crore claim is still going on because she wrote, I am brother of Dawood Ibrahim. So I think these are the harmful people and they are taking away because nobody is bothering them. They publish lies, outright lies, and newspaper like it. Like each and every food we are eating, Times of India says is full of poison and nobody challenges them. So I think these are the real root cause of problem. And our average people, good citizen, good bureaucrat, they are also misguided. They also said, oh, our food is full of poison. So this is one of the problem. And that may be, even I had to fight with judge in Chandigarh. He said Punjab is full of cancer. I had to go to Tata Memorial Hospital. Dr. Dixit affidavit was given that Punjab has least cancer. Then he believed. So this is another serious problem we are facing. So
I think what you have been fighting very well against them. Recently, I was surprised. This Vandana Shiva said that the COVID-19 is because of agriculture, because of technology agriculture. It's something like GM pesticide, fertilizers. I was shocked. I said, these are the people, nobody contradicted them. And then they are given front pages in Times of India and government asked them. I am really shocked.
Yeah.
I have got one comment to make. I read one question from my friend, Dr. Pradeep Chuneja, and he's same person. He's the great entomologist from PAU, and he has posed a question on the red category pesticides and monocrotophos and this being banned in vegetable and is still being used in vegetable. So, Dr. Chuneja, I just want to share with you the perspective about this red category. And you know more than I can tell because you are the professor and entomologist yourself. See, all these red category pesticides are red category because they are acutely toxic. What would this mean is that with the slight dose, one can be poisoned. But the fact of life remains that this product that you have referred, monocrotophos, is in use in this country since last 40 years. And from 40 years, at least in my career, I started my job with the manufacturer of monocrotophos called Ciba-Geigy. I myself have been using these products in the field for a number of years. If you are diluting it to the level of 99% or more than that, it is absolutely safe for the sprayman and the related environment. Now, as far as their usage are concerned, you know that these pesticides are mostly organophosphorus compounds. They are so suitable for our kind of climate. They dissipate so fast. They have got quick knockdown action, etc., etc. And therefore, they have got tremendous use. They are there in this country by law. I will have no argument with you if you change the law that we are removing red category from the list and not really caring that red category has got its own usage. Then I would agree that, okay, by law you have removed, so monocrotophos also has been removed. But to talk red category and to talk about monocrotophos is something which is not really reasonable. The second question, sir, you have posed that this product has been banned all over the world. Well, factually not correct, but I would agree with you that most of the countries in the world, it has been banned. This is what is generally said. But actually speaking, it has been voluntarily withdrawn by the basic manufacturer called Shell and DuPont and Ciba-Geigy, etc., etc. And then ban terminology was used afterwards about this product. Now, why this product was discontinued in rest of the world, I think you have to understand a little. Raju Bhai Shroff is sitting in this panel. He is one person who is the reason of producing monocrotophos in this country based on phosphorus is extracted from rock phosphate that it became so cheap that nobody in the world could compete. And manufacturer after manufacturer went out of business. They closed their plant. Today, we are the leader. I mean, the point that the others are banned, so we should ban is really not correct. That you must appreciate. We have got our own technology. It is our own technology developed by Indian companies, developed by CSIR institutes. It is our own product for the poor man. It is our own product which is being used so widely without any side effects. And therefore, I would say that when I talk to you in person or on phone, I'll explain you further. But there is nothing wrong with the red category pesticides or with the organophosphorus pesticides. They have got a role to play in this country and they'll continue to be used. Thank you very much, sir, for your question.
We have Satish Patil. He had raised hand. Satish, are you there? You had raised hands. Can you raise hand again? You can put it. We'll allow you to speak.
Still going on.
Satish Patil.
Not there.
Okay. We have, we'll take in random. We've got a lot of hands going up. When Satish comes back again, I'll take him. Let me take in random, not in order anyway. Dr. S.K. Sahu, can you speak? Please unmute yourself. Yes. You can introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good afternoon. Myself, Dr. S.K. Sahu from North Bengal Agriculture University, UBKB, Undibari, West Bengal.
Yeah, go ahead with your question, sir.
Actually, just in case of endosulfan, in most of the books and literature, we found that endosulfan is safer to bees, and it was a very excellent pesticide. But after use of long years, again this pesticide is banned. Endosulfan is banned for vegetables and fruits, and it's banned. Actually, what is the story behind this? One pesticide is already released, and it's mentioned that it is safe to natural enemy, it's safe to bees. But after some time, again its information is coming. It is toxic to bees and toxic to birds. What is the history behind it? One pesticide is coming, again it's banning.
Yeah, Raju bhai, you want to respond to this?
No, endosulfan, everybody knows it was safe. Only thing is some NGOs, they publish articles which are scientifically bogus. But there was one doctor in Kasargod. In Kasargod area, there is some hereditary problem. There's some people born with deformity, and they produce such a publicity. They are more powerful. They put Chernobyl picture and produce before judge. Judge mind was so poisoned, nobody could argue. He said, I don't want any more deaths. And chapter was closed. And the main producer, Excel Industries, were not aggressive fighter. They were very mild fighter. And that was another weakness. And otherwise, there is no documentary evidence that endosulfan had any harmful effect whatsoever. Actually, though, some endosulfan, not some cases, who had pile, who had cough, who had other thing, they went and claimed money because government was given endosulfan. And I published advertisement addressed to Chief Justice photograph that please note Gundaism is going on in name of endosulfan. And these NGOs went against me. Luckily, Rohington Nariman, who was there, he said this advertisement is perfect. But we fought like anything. But medical, our ICMR were another foolish people. They wanted to protect their own colleague who had published false report. And that's why the endosulfan is dead now.
Even I gave a report that it was very safe on that Kerala. But then the Kerala people were against me. I was banned to enter Kerala. That was something on my report. So this is something which is they were after banning. That's all. So there is nothing scientific in that.
There's nothing. No, but
Thank you.
Powerful NGOs.
Yeah.
Power.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raju sir and Dr. Mai. Thanks, Daksha, for this question. I have Amarnath Chandrani. Amarnath, you can unmute and start talking. Please unmute.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was a very good debate and presentations, and really many questions are answered. Just from my side, if I'm allowed, I would like to share one perspective, very small perspective, which the people who have banned this, they have not probably looked into. The perspective is the impact on the crops. And on the crops, when you look at overall impact, seems to be like 20% of the Indian industry turnover is getting impacted because of this. But when I go down to the crops, and in the crops, there are fungicide, insecticide, and herbicide segments. And when I look at fungicide segment, if I take out paddy, which is the biggest crop, if I take out cotton, which is the biggest crop in the industry, in the rest of the fruits and vegetables, 50 to 70% of the fungicides market is wiped out because of this ban. If I take out these two crops. So what the apple, grapes, pomegranate, potato, tomato, chili, these farmers, what they will do if these fungicides are wiped out of this market, and 50 to 70% of the solutions are out of the market. Because all the new solutions which are belonging to the multinationals, the new chemistries, they are for paddy. But what is there for these vegetables and fruits? So we need to somewhere highlight the situation of potato, grapes, apples, and pomegranate, onion, cumin-like crops, which are very, very high revenue crops, export-oriented crops. And if the disease devastated, it can be a situation like Bengal famine in 1963, when brown spot of paddy led to the famine, and in 1845 in UK, in the Europe, the
1943.
1943, and in late blight of potato in Europe led to the famine. So this kind of situations can, and it can be worse than COVID kind of situation if the diseases are allowed to proliferate in absence of solution.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amarnath. I think Amarnath is from Indophil, right, Amarnath?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Now I think Satish is back online. Satish, unmute yourself and then you can speak. Satish Patil.
Yes.
Yeah, Satish Patil, President of Atul, please go ahead.
I hope I'm audible.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so first of all, thank you all the panelists for very good views I gathered. One question that I have was, can there be now some discussion about the way forward and the strategy for the industry? Okay, we know the order is unfair and there are so many things not right about it, but what is the way the industry should now take this forward?
That is already being discussed actually. We have, in the end we said that we'll have to really educate all these MPs. We have to educate this thing, because what he said is that 45 days is over. Then it can be extended already. So if they extend it, then naturally in that particular period, the entire strategy, because all the organizations of pesticide are coming together and they have high intellect. So they can really put up all those issues. So certainly way forward is not that difficult for us. Thank you.
Thanks,
I will
Satish.
tell you.
Yes, yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Acha. No, we have a task force. We have experts from all the industries, and we have kept a team of lawyers.
Webinar.
Acha. Okay. All right. So can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Acha. So CCFI, under the leadership and CLI and PMFI, we had several meetings. So one thing, we have decided to have our own task force. So we somebody is going on each and every pesticide at what fault they committed. Other thing we are doing is meeting ministers. We met Mr. Rupala, we met Mr. Chaudhary, and we had also good meeting with Mr. Narendra Singh Tomar. Now Tomar had argued that we have banned because you never gave any data. So that information we have got. Actually, Mr. Tomar said Rupala should look into it. So we are in constant touch with Mr. Rupala. We had a very good meeting. He has taken note down. I have tried to convince Rupala that instead of hearing, you keep a neutral person. Our view is this. CIBRC has told that we are telling lie. We tell them they are telling lie. So the best solution is keep a neutral body. I have talked to ICAR Director General, Mr. Mahapatra. Dr. Mahapatra is very much in favor of listening and giving judgment, because he says, I know what is crop, I know what is farmer, I want to fill. These people sitting in air-conditioned office have made this rule without knowing ABC of what is happening in field. So this is between us. This is progressing well. We have requested Mr. Rupala that please appoint ICAR expert team to give their own opinion on the subject, whether industry is right or whether CIBRC who have made this rule right. So this is the progress we have made. Meanwhile, industry has written under lawyers' advice legal letters. And if we don't get a reply, then people are going to High Court to force High Court that please, Mr. Atish Chandra, this is my committee report is available, RB Singh committee report is available, Banerjee committee report is available, but Anupam Verma committee is secret. How can it be? So all that we are worked out a strong legal point where we'll have upper hand. And I think ministers are more or less convinced that there is something seriously wrong. So all the movement from farmers, from dealers, from distributors, things are going on under pressure. So the intelligent and mature ministers, I think, will change their mind and we should win. But if we go to Supreme Court, the judges are a little bit crazy because they are brainwashed wrongly. So we are planning to go to court as a last resort. Before that, we would like to convince them and convert their mindset. And we hope if we all work together. Another suggestion, Dr. Mai suggested we should publish a booklet of all these lectures. I think it's a very good idea anybody can listen to them will change. Even CIB-RC who have done this rule will change their mind if they have any sense. So I think this way we will progress well. And this is a very good movement, but I think within another 8 days we should have one more like this with more people coming out. But it is very well done.
Sure, sir. I mean, it's a thing. We'll surely try and get another one done at the earliest, and then see, with your help and entire panelists' help, how we.
Garwalji, should I leave now?
Yeah, we're just concluding, Doctor. I think.
Okay.
Thank you. I have at least 15 hands going up, but I know thanks to each one of you, the attendees especially, who have been our loyal attendees, and today we got, as I mentioned, across the globe, a lot of interest coming in from various sectors.
But they can give the questions in writing. I think
yes,
we can reply all of them. No
we do have, that's a lot of questions coming in and chat boxes coming in.
Yeah.
I'll try and share with the panelists the mail, and then we can respond to them. And as Raju sir has suggested, probably we'll try and see how we'll have one more follow-up panel discussion, and then see if things needs to be kind of firmed up further. So we are always available as Ray Consulting, and as though the books sure will come, but for the benefit of the audience and for all of us, we'll be sharing hopefully by tomorrow night, otherwise by Monday latest, a link on YouTube about this entire recording. You can visit, I mean, people, attendees and others can visit youtube.com/Ray Consulting. So all this entire recording is as in what we are watching today. That's the reason many people register in, even they may not be able to join, but we will be sharing the link with them. And not only this, Raju sir, I would like to share with you from Ray Consulting, we have got almost 8,000 dedicated email of agri professionals and almost 4,000 WhatsApp numbers. So we would be sharing all our recordings to them. So they would be immensely benefited, and especially this subject, a lot of people are curious to know what's happening. So I think that has come out very well.
Very well. Very well.
I think 1 hour webinar has gone to almost 2 hours. Thank you for your patience and a lot of time. I'm sorry, my co-panelists, I asked for 1 hour, but I think 2 hours. Even now you can see on your screen that entire number is still intact. People are still would like to have, people are raising their hands again and again. As Dr. Mai mentioned, my dear attendees or audience, please shoot your questions to the email from which you have received the registration link to anita.agarwal@rayconsulting.in. We'll surely look into the questions, and then we'll forward to the concerned panelists, or maybe to all the panelists. We have a group, and then from them we can hear, and then if possible we'll try and, not if possible, we'll try and answer your questions. Raju bhai, bahut dhanyawad. I mean,
you said 2 hours. I think every minute, if 2 hours was very useful,
absolutely,
very informative and interesting.
Yes.
There was no tracking, everything.
Thank you.
Something important. 2 hours or people talk anything, but this one was every minute was, every information was excellent.
Thank you.
Coming from you is, I think, a certificate for all of us. Coming from you, that too. Thank you, Raju bhai, for making it. I mean, I just got a call and I said, please, sir, why don't you join? And he was, in no time, he agreed. And I don't know what his schedule was. He took out the entire 2 hours for the benefit of the agchem industry. That's awesome. It will not go, I'm sure, in vain. It will be useful. And Dr. Mai sir, I think how much ever we speak about you is less. I mean, being part of the government and you gave your open views. I mean, you brought in a lot of light through red light here. That's nice. Dr. Ajit, Dr. Tyagarajan, Dr. Tomar, and of course Jitendra. Thanks, Jitendra. I think this was his idea. I think we conceived on 20th of May, and it took about a fortnight, but it was worthwhile to have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will continue to be in touch. And as I said, any back of a call, I'm available for the service of agchem industry and agri value chain.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, audience, and thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Being a weekend, everybody is still attending. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank
We had a
you.
great
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
Good. Yes.